Elias Rowe stood at the edge of the great hall, hands folded behind his back, shoulders straight the way human military training demanded. The ceiling above him curved like the inside of a giant shell, glowing with soft blue light. Alien nobles filled the room, their voices low and musical, their movements graceful and slow. Elias felt heavy among them, like a piece of iron dropped into water. He reminded himself to breathe. He was not important here. That was what he had been told when he arrived on the capital world of Velmora 3 months ago. Humans were guests, observers, advisors, at best. The real power belonged to the Cathari, an ancient species with long memories and delicate pride. And at the center of all that power sat their queen, Queen Seraleth. Elias had seen her only from a distance until tonight. She sat upon a raised platform, her throne grown rather than built, shaped from living crystal and metal that slowly shifted as if breathing. She was taller than most of her kind, her posture calm but commanding. Her eyes, dark and reflective, missed very little. The gathering was meant to celebrate peace. Another treaty, another polite promise between stars. Elias had attended many such events since humanity joined the wider galaxy. They were all the same. Smiles, careful words, hidden blades. He had just started to relax when something felt wrong. It was not sound or movement. It was absence. Elias's eyes scanned the room again, faster now. He noticed a gap in the security pattern near the eastern archway. One of the Queen's guards was standing half a step out of place, too stiff, too focused. Human instinct flared. Before he could think, Elias moved. He stepped forward, pretending to adjust his uniform, and reached the guard just as the alien's arm twitched. A thin shard of black light formed between the guard's fingers, sharp and silent. Elias grabbed the arm and twisted hard. The shard fired, missing the Queen by less than a meter and striking the far wall, where it vanished without a sound. Gasps echoed through the hall. Guards rushed in. The false guard collapsed as Elias drove him to the floor, knee pressed into the alien's back. The hall erupted into chaos. Weapons appeared, shields flared, nobles scattered. Elias released the attacker only when royal guards tore him away. He stood, slowly, heart pounding, aware of 100 eyes on him. For a brief moment, everything went quiet. Queen Seraleth had risen from her throne. She stepped down, her long robes flowing behind her. She stopped in front of Elias, studying him with an intensity that made his skin prickle. He waited for anger, for accusation, for death. Instead, she inclined her head. "You saw what others did not," she said, her voice calm but carrying through the hall. This human acted without hesitation. She turned to her guards. "Remove the traitor. Secure the palace." Only then did Elias realize his hands were shaking. The event ended early after that. Elias was escorted from the hall, not as a prisoner, but not quite as a guest either. 2 royal guards walked beside him in silence as they led him through the winding corridors of the palace. His thoughts raced. Had he just saved the Queen's life? Or had he just ruined everything humanity had worked for? They stopped outside his assigned quarters. The doors opened smoothly. The guards gestured for him to enter, then stepped back into the shadows. Elias exhaled and stepped inside. His room was simple by palace standards. A low bed, a writing table, a window that looked out over the glowing city. He sat on the edge of the bed and rubbed his face. Too fast, he thought. I moved too fast. Hours passed, or maybe only minutes. He was still replaying the moment in his mind when a soft chime echoed through the room. Someone was at the door. Elias stood and opened it, expecting a messenger or another guard. Instead, Queen Seraleth stood there alone. No guards, no attendants, just her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. She stepped closer, close enough that Elias could see fine patterns along her skin, like faint stars. Her presence filled the room, not through force, but certainty. She leaned in slightly, her voice dropping so low it felt meant only for him. "I'm coming to your room tonight," she whispered. Elias's heart stopped. She straightened, her expression unreadable, then turned and walked away as if she had said nothing of importance at all. The door slid shut. Elias stood frozen, his mind empty. That night, he did not sleep. He paced the room, replaying her words again and again. In Cathari culture, private visits from the Queen were almost unheard of. Dangerous, intimate, political, and he was human. When the chime sounded again, hours later, he was already standing. The door opened, and she entered without ceremony. She did not sit, neither did he. "You are wondering why I am here," she said. "Yes," Elias answered honestly. She studied him for a long moment. Most would have bowed. Most would have waited for permission to act. "You did not." "I saw a threat," Elias said. "I reacted. That is not common among my people," she replied. "Too many calculations. Too much fear of consequence." She moved slowly around the room, her gaze taking in everything. "Your species is young, fragile. Yet you survive where others with greater strength have fallen." Elias chose his words carefully. "We don't survive by being perfect. We survive by being stubborn." A faint curve appeared at the corner of her mouth. Not quite a smile. "There are those in my court who wish me removed," she said. "They believe the Empire is weak for allowing humans so close." She turned back to him. Tonight, they learned otherwise. Elias felt the weight of her attention settle fully on him. "You will be watched now," she continued. "Tested. Pressured." "I can handle it," Elias said. "I know," she replied. "That is why I chose you." The word hung between them. She stepped closer again, but this time there was no whisper, no mystery. "Only truth. Rest," Queen Serelith said. "Tomorrow, the galaxy will begin to look at humanity differently." She paused at the door. "And so will I." And she was gone. Elias sank onto the bed, breath leaving him in a rush. Outside the window, the city lights burned bright, unaware that something small but powerful had just changed. The whisper was not a promise of danger. It was the beginning of something far bigger. Morning came without peace. Elias Rowe woke before the palace lights shifted to day cycle. He lay still on the bed, eyes open, listening. The room was quiet, but not empty. He had learned long ago that quiet did not mean safe. The Queen's visit replayed in his mind again and again. Her words were calm, but they carried weight. "You will be watched now." She had not exaggerated. When Elias finally rose and dressed, the door chimed almost at once. 2 palace guards waited outside, their posture formal, their expressions unreadable. "You are requested," one said. Not invited. Requested. Elias followed them through halls he had never walked before. These corridors were narrower, older, lined with symbols carved deep into the walls. The air felt heavier here, as if history itself pressed down on him. They entered a chamber filled with light. Transparent panels revealed a view of the city far below. Several figures stood inside already. Ithari nobles, advisors, and military leaders. All eyes turned toward Elias as he stepped in. He resisted the urge to shift under their gaze. Queen Serelith stood at the center. "This is the human," one noble said softly, not bothering to hide his distaste. "The one who interfered." "He prevented an assassination," another replied. "That matters. Or staged it," a third voice added. Elias felt the accusation like a physical weight. He did not speak. He waited. Queen Serelith raised one hand, and the room fell silent. "This human saved my life," she said. "That is fact." She turned to Elias. "You will recount what you saw." "Exactly." Elias nodded and spoke plainly. He described the gap in the guard formation, the unnatural stillness, the weapon forming. He did not embellish. He did not defend himself. He simply told the truth. As he spoke, the room shifted. Some listened closely. Others watched him instead, studying his posture, his tone, his eyes. When he finished, silence returned. One of the military leaders stepped forward. "Your reaction time was fast. Faster than our own guards." Elias shrugged slightly. "Humans don't wait for certainty, not when lives are at risk." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Queen Serelith's gaze sharpened. "And that," she said, "is precisely why he remains." Remain. Elias felt a chill. "He will be placed under direct observation," the Queen continued. "Not confinement. Observation. He will attend council sessions, military briefings, public events." A noble's crest flared in agitation. "That is highly irregular." "So is betrayal," the Queen replied calmly. No one argued further. From that moment on, Elias was never alone. 2 guards followed him at all times. Drones hovered just out of sight. His communicator received constant requests, questions disguised as casual conversation, invitations framed as courtesy. The palace had turned into a living test. At lunch, a Cathari diplomat asked him what humans feared most. At dinner, another asked what humans would do if their queen betrayed them. During a military review, an officer casually suggested that humans were loyal only to power, not principle. Each time, Elias answered honestly. "We fear losing each other," he said at lunch. "We don't put blind faith in leaders," he said at dinner. "We hold them accountable." "And loyalty?" the officer pressed. Elias met his gaze. "We're loyal to those who stand beside us when it matters." The questions slowed after that, not because they were satisfied, because they were unsettled. That evening, as Elias walked through the garden paths, the air thick with glowing pollen, a presence moved beside him. Queen Serelith matched his pace. "You are doing well," she said. "I don't feel like I am," Elias admitted. "That is because you are being judged," she replied, "not by words, by pressure." They walked in silence for a moment. "My people believe leadership must be distant," she continued, "untouchable. You do not." Elias frowned slightly. "On Earth, leaders who hide don't last." She stopped walking and faced him. "That belief has cost your species dearly." "Yes," Elias said, "but it's also saved us." Her eyes searched his face, as if measuring something invisible. "There are factions within my empire," she said. "Some ancient, some new. All watching you." "Because I'm human," Elias said. "Because you are human," she agreed. "And because you are close to me." The word settled heavily between them. That night, the attack came. It was not loud, not dramatic. Elias was reviewing translated reports when the lights flickered once. Just once. His body reacted before his mind did. He moved away from the desk as a panel in the wall dissolved, revealing a narrow opening. Something small and fast shot through the air. Elias grabbed the chair and swung it hard. The object shattered against it, releasing a cloud of fine dust that hissed as it ate into the floor. Guards burst in seconds later, weapons raised. Elias stood frozen, chest heaving. "Seal the wing," one guard barked. Alarms did not sound. No announcement followed. The attempt was meant to be quiet. That frightened Elias more than open violence. Queen Serelith arrived moments later. She knelt beside the damaged floor, examining the residue. "Poison nanites," she said softly. "Illegal! Rare." She stood and looked at Elias. "You are meant to die slowly." Elias swallowed. That would have caused questions. "Yes," she said, "which is why they assumed you would not notice." Her gaze hardened. "They are wrong." The next day, the Queen did something unprecedented. She placed Elias at her side during a public address. The plaza below the palace was filled with thousands of Cathari. News feeds across the empire carried the image, a human standing beside the Queen, unarmed, unbowed. "This human," Queen Serelith announced, "has faced betrayal meant for me. He has endured scrutiny meant to break him. He remains." Her eyes swept the crowd. "He represents a species that survives not through perfection, but through resolve." The reaction was immediate. Shock, anger, curiosity. Across the stars, other empires took notice. Messages arrived within hours, questions, warnings, thinly veiled threats. One message stood out: "Withdraw the human, or we will assume influence." Elias read it twice. Queen Serelith watched him. "They believe you control me." Elias shook his head. "They don't understand humans." "No," she said, "they don't." That night, Elias stood at the window again, looking out over the city. He felt smaller than ever. One human, standing at the center of forces older and stronger than his entire species. And yet, he remembered Earth. Broken cities rebuilt by stubborn hands. Wars survived not by strength, but endurance. He straightened his shoulders. The galaxy was watching, and humanity, whether it wanted to or not, had just stepped forward. The attention did not fade. If anything, it sharpened. Elias Rowe felt it everywhere he went. In the slight delay before doors opened. In the way conversation stopped when he entered a room. In the careful smiles that did not reach Cathari's eyes. He had become a symbol, and symbols were dangerous things. 3 days after the public address, the palace shifted into a higher security state. Elias noticed it first in the small details. Patrol routes changed. Drones doubled. The air itself seemed tighter, like the calm before a storm. Queen Serelith summoned him early that morning. The chamber she chose was not public or ceremonial. It was small, circular, and lined with old star maps etched directly into the walls. No guards stood inside, only the Queen and Elias. "You are becoming a problem," she said calmly. Elias blinked. "I was afraid of that." "For them," she clarified. She gestured, and a section of the wall glowed to life, showing streams of information, names, alliances, movement patterns. Red lines connected certain symbols like veins. "These are the factions acting against me," she said. "And against you." Elias studied the display. "That's a lot." "Yes," the Queen said. "They believe my judgment is compromised. Because of me. Because of what you represent," she corrected. "A variable they cannot predict." Elias folded his arms. "Then maybe I should step back." The Queen turned sharply. "No." The word was firm. Final. "They want you gone," she continued. "If you retreat now, they will learn that pressure works, that humans bend." Elias felt a familiar tightening in his chest. "We bend," he said. "But we don't break easily." She watched him closely. Exactly. Later that day, Elias was assigned something new. Command, not official, not announced, but real. A joint security task force was formed under the excuse of cultural exchange. In truth, it was a test. Human tactical advisors paired with Cathari units, tasked with protecting key infrastructure within the capital. Some Cathari officers resisted immediately. This is inefficient, one argued. Human methods are chaotic. They are fast, Elias replied evenly. Chaos is only dangerous if you don't understand it. The first incident happened within hours. A power relay failed in one of the lower districts, plunging an entire sector into darkness. Cathari doctrine called for slow isolation and analysis. Elias disagreed. Move now, he said. Darkness hides intent. They went in fast. Human teams used portable lights, low-tech tools, and direct communication. They found the saboteurs before the damage could spread. 3 agents attempting to overload the system and blame human involvement. Evidence was secured. Quietly, word spread. Humans did not just react, they anticipated. The factions adjusted their plans. That night, Elias received a private message. Meet me alone, or the Queen suffers. The location was beneath the palace, in maintenance tunnels rarely used anymore. Elias stared at the message for a long time. He did not tell the Queen. Instead, he prepared. He left markers only a human would notice. Minor shifts in lighting, patterns in footstep echoes. Simple things. Old tricks from old wars. The tunnel was cold and silent. Elias moved slowly, senses sharp. You came? A voice said from the shadows. A Cathari stepped forward, older than most, their crest marked with symbols of a noble house Elias recognized. You underestimate humans, Elias said. The noble smiled thinly. On the contrary, we study weaknesses. Then you know threats don't work on us. Oh, this isn't a threat, the noble replied. It's an offer. Convince the Queen to step back. Withdraw human influence. And you live? Elias shook his head. You already lost. The noble frowned. How so? Because you think this is about me. Lights flared. Human and Cathari security units flooded the tunnel from both ends. The noble turned. Too late. Queen Seralith stepped into view. You used him as bait, the noble hissed. No, the Queen said. I trusted him. She looked at Elias, and he did not disappoint. The noble was taken away. More names followed, more connections unraveled. The conspiracy was larger than expected, but weaker at its core. It relied on secrecy. Humans had a way of breaking that. Still, victory came at a cost. The next strike was not subtle. A Cathari cruiser exploded in orbit above the capital, debris burning across the sky. Thousands watched from the surface as the symbol of imperial strength shattered. Blame came fast. Human sabotage, the broadcasts claimed. Human aggression. Human ambition. Elias stood beside the Queen as advisors shouted and argued. We must distance ourselves, one demanded, before war begins. Queen Seralith remained silent. Finally, she turned to Elias. Speak. Every eye fell on him. Elias took a breath. If you push us away now, you prove them right. That fear controls this empire. He met the room's gaze. Humans didn't destroy that ship. But if you abandon us without proof, you teach the galaxy that lies work. Silence followed. The Queen nodded once. Investigate. Fully. The investigation was fast. Human forensic teams worked alongside Cathari analysts. They traced energy signatures, construction materials, hidden supply routes. The truth emerged. The ship had been sacrificed by the same factions calling for human removal. The evidence was undeniable. Public exposure followed. Noble houses fell overnight. Arrests echoed through the empire. Trust shattered, but rebuilt in new shapes. Through it all, Elias barely slept. One evening, exhausted, he found himself in the same garden path where the Queen had once walked beside him. She joined him again without announcement. "You could have died," she said softly. "So could you," Elias replied. She stopped. "Why do you stay?" He thought for a long moment, because if we leave when things get hard, nothing changes. Someone has to stand in the open. Her gaze softened. "You have changed this empire." "No," Elias said. "I just showed what humans do." She looked up at the stars above the palace. "Other empires are watching. Some with fear, some with interest." "That's fine," Elias said. "We're used to being watched." She turned back to him. "They will test us again." Elias nodded. "Let them." The galaxy was no longer whispering. It was paying attention. And humanity was no longer standing in the shadows. The response from the galaxy was not slow. It came like a tide. Within days of the exposed conspiracy, foreign envoys flooded the Cathari capital. Some arrived with polite concern. Others arrived with demands. Long-range fleets adjusted their patrol paths just enough to be noticed. Trade routes hesitated. Insurance rates for shipping through Cathari space quietly doubled. Pressure applied carefully. Elias Rowe watched it all unfold from the operations chamber deep inside the palace. The room was filled with moving lights and layered projections, showing borders, fleets, and probabilities. Human and Cathari officers stood together now, no longer separated by polite distance. "They're circling," a Cathari strategist said, "testing reaction time." "They want us to blink," Elias replied. Queen Seralith stood at the center, calm as ever. "We will not." But even calm had limits. The first real strike came without warning. A border defense station went silent. No distress call, no debris field, just absence. Elias felt the familiar cold settle in his stomach. That wasn't pirates. "No," the Queen agreed. "That was a message." Within an hour, more reports followed. Navigation beacons scrambled, civilian traffic harassed by unknown patrols. Always just short of open attack. Legal aggression. "They're trying to provoke a mistake," Elias said. "If we fire first, they paint us as the threat. And if we do nothing," a Cathari admiral said tightly, "we appear weak." The room buzzed with tension. Elias stepped forward. "Then we don't do either." Eyes turned toward him. "We protect without posturing," he continued. "Escort civilian traffic, harden systems, record everything, make their moves expensive without giving them the headline they want." Silence followed. Queen Seralith nodded slowly. "Proceed." Human crews moved fast. They were not the largest force in the Empire, not the most advanced, but they were used to working with less, used to patching broken systems with limited tools, used to long hours and bad odds. Human escort ships joined trade convoys. Their designs were simple, modular, easy to repair. When harassed, they maneuvered close, shields overlapping civilian vessels, recording every action. They did not chase. They did not threaten. They endured. The galaxy noticed. Frustration grew among the foreign fleets. Incidents escalated. One escort ship took direct fire meant to disable engines without causing casualties. The human ship did not retreat. Its captain rerouted power manually, bypassing damaged systems, and stayed in formation. Footage spread. "Why didn't they pull back?" one foreign commander reportedly asked. "They don't want to be pushed," came the reply. The next move was bolder. A coalition fleet jumped into a disputed system under the claim of a training exercise. It was too large, too close. The Cathari High Command demanded a response. Elias stood before the Queen and her council, exhaustion visible in his eyes. "They want a show," he said, "so don't give them the one they expect." What do you suggest? An advisor asked. Elias took a breath. We send humans. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Not as attackers, he clarified. As stabilizers, mixed crews. Shared command. If they fire on everyone. Queen Cerilith studied him. That puts you in the center of it. Yes, Elias said. That's the point. The joint fleet launched within hours. Human ships flew beside Cathari war vessels, their formations tight, movements precise. No weapons charged, no threats broadcast. When the coalition fleet detected them, confusion followed. Why are they approaching? A foreign captain demanded. They're not locking weapons, another reported. The fleets met at close range, drifting in tense silence. Elias stood on the bridge of a human cruiser, hands braced on the console. His Cathari counterpart stood beside him, crest rigid with focus. This is as far as we go, Elias transmitted on an open channel. State your intent. The response was delayed, then came laughter, bold for a minor species. Elias did not react. We are not here to fight. We are here to ensure no one does something they cannot undo. Weapons began to power up on the opposing fleet. The human cruiser did not move. Neither did the Cathari ships. Seconds stretched. Then, without warning, a third force emerged from hyperspace. Not allied, not neutral. Raiders. They had been waiting for weakness. The battlefield erupted. The raiders attacked indiscriminately, targeting logistics ships and command vessels alike. The coalition fleet scrambled, formations breaking. Elias did not hesitate. All units, defensive pattern Delta. Protect damaged vessels. Ignore flags. Human and Cathari ships moved as one. They covered retreat paths. They intercepted incoming fire. They took hits meant for others. A human frigate lost shields and kept flying. A Cathari destroyer rotated to block a missile aimed at a civilian carrier. The chaos lasted less than 20 minutes. When it ended, the raiders were gone, driven off by coordinated defense rather than pursuit. Silence returned. Then something unexpected happened. The coalition fleet pulled back. No victory speeches. No threats. They withdrew. Back on the capital world, the atmosphere shifted. News feeds showed the battle from multiple angles. Human ships holding formation. Human crews coordinating calmly. Humans choosing protection over dominance. The narrative cracked. They didn't take advantage, commentators noted. They didn't escalate. Trust, slow and fragile, began to form, but the final blow came from within. A Cathari extremist group, desperate and cornered, attempted a last strike. They sabotaged a planetary shield generator, aiming to cause a catastrophic failure during peak power draw. It would have killed millions. Human engineers caught it, not through advanced scans, but through pattern recognition, a mismatch in maintenance logs, a detail others dismissed. Elias was called to the site as alarms rose. The generator core vibrated violently, energy spiking beyond safe limits. We don't have time to shut it down properly, a Cathari engineer said, panic rising. If it breaches, we don't shut it down, Elias said. We bleed it. How? Manually. The chamber fell silent. That will expose the team to lethal radiation, someone said. Elias nodded. Short term. Manageable with rotation. Queen Cerilith arrived as he was already suiting up. She caught his arm. You are not expendable. Neither are they, Elias replied, gesturing to the engineers. But humans are good at taking turns carrying the weight. She searched his face. You may not survive this. He met her gaze steadily. Then let it matter. The operation was brutal. Teams cycled in and out, manually rerouting energy, opening vents, bleeding power in controlled bursts. Human and Cathari engineers worked side by side, sweat and strain visible even through protective gear. The core stabilized. Lives were saved. When Elias finally stepped out, barely able to stand, the Queen was there. She did not speak. She simply placed her hand over her heart and bowed. Publicly. The image spread across the Empire and beyond, a Queen bowing to a human. The message was clear. The galaxy adjusted its calculations. Fear had failed. Pressure had failed. And now, humanity was no longer just present. It was proven.